Hey y'all, this is Scott King back with another video for Nostalgia Journeys. Now, if you remember the last episode that I hosted, we talked about the Disney Black Diamond collection, and we're going to move on and talk about another VHS nostalgic-related subject. And today, I'm going to talk about the top 5 most common VHS tapes. These are VHS tapes that were either mass-produced or hyped up or just generally out there in pretty much every thrift store that you visit. So let's start with number 5. Number 5, The Lion King. Coming back to Disney again, this is almost full circle, or should I say, circle of life. But coming back to this, the whole Disney thing like we discussed in the previous video about the Disney Black Diamond. This wasn't Black Diamond, this was Masterpiece Collection, a totally different Disney collection. But The Lion King was one of the best-selling Disney VHS tapes of all time. So much so that literally everywhere you go that sold VHS tapes back in the day or sells used VHS tapes at least has one copy or more of The Lion King, which is why it made our top 5 list. The Lion King was extremely popular, came out in 1994 in theaters, released on VHS soon after, and it just flooded the market, making it on our top 5 list of most common VHS tapes. Number 4 on our list is Jurassic Park. Same case like with The Lion King, Jurassic Park being released in 1993. Wildly popular, very wildly popular, and sold many, many copies. And just like The Lion King, you see it in practically every thrift store. There's even a guy who goes around and is collecting. I don't know if you've seen him on the internet. If not, take a moment, pause this video, Google him. There's actually a couple other guys who are collecting, VHS tapes for some odd reason. There's a guy who's collecting VHS copies of Speed. Unfortunately, that one doesn't make our list. It almost made our list. It didn't make our list, but that leads us into number 3, though. Jerry Maguire. There was a guy going around collecting that one as well, just like I mentioned with Jurassic Park. And Jerry Maguire is another one that was wildly popular. A lot of people bought it, and you see it in practically every thrift store, or at least to me in my area, I see at least one copy. Same case with the other 2 ones mentioned on our list. And Jerry Maguire, it's Tom Cruise. Everybody who's anybody back in the day either loved or hated Tom Cruise. And of course, he's wildly popular, also a Scientologist, by the way. And, everybody bought it because of its star. And that's what made it super common. Now, number 2 on our list is another one that's it's really out there. You see it almost literally everywhere you go. And I don't know if it's just because of why it was so popular. But it's the movie Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. Now, a little backstory on this. Star Wars Episode 1, when it released in 1999, there had not been a brand new Star Wars movie since 1983. The re-releases in 97 don't really count. They were just re-releases with added CGI, but anybody who loves Star Wars or loves science fiction, or just anybody in general, bought Episode 1 on VHS when it came out in 2000, and then eventually bought it on DVD when it came out in the fall of 2001. Now, Episode 1 merchandise in general was very prominent in 1999 and 2000, and practically every kid who loved Star Wars or loved toys in general bought these. And then naturally, they're like, well, I gotta watch the movie. So they bought the movie. Now, if you watched in my, or I should say our last video, or I should say the last one I hosted, I mentioned that I have a reselling history with VHS tapes for, 2 decades nearly, or over 2 decades, I should say. It's been that long, I can't remember. It's been a long time. And I constantly, every time I get a new lot of VHS tapes that I have resold in my retail store, I have gotten at least one copy of Star Wars Episode 1. Almost every time. I've seen a lot of sealed ones. They're not worth a whole lot. I mean, a loose copy is worth, maybe $1, $2. Sealed copies typically go, in some cases, sealed copies go as much as $10 just because they're sealed. You also had this weird one that came out. Not really weird, but it was a widescreen edition that came out. It came in a box, and it came with an art book and a film cell that was allegedly from prints of the film. I guess after they were done, they took a bunch of these reels of, they sent out to theaters and cut them up and included them in a limited number of these widescreen edition box sets. And those are a little bit more uncommon. Ones that are opened, complete, typically go for about $10 to $15 on the resellers market. Sealed ones, I've seen some of the sealed ones go for as much as $30, $35, $40 in some cases. But they're kind of common, but they're not really too common, If you do want to collect Episode 1, that's the box set I recommend buying if you're buying them, or if you're buying online or in collector's stores or thrift stores. That's the one you want to own. Now, moving on to number 1. And number 1 is Fro Mama from the Train. That has to be the most common VHS tape I have encountered in my whole life. I swear I have seen more copies of it than anything ever in my life. Every time I get a lot, there's at least 1 or 2 copies of it. From one person, I'm like, why did you have to have 2 copies of Fro Mama from the Train starring Billy Crystal and Danny DeVito and that angry old woman from the Goonies? Why? I'm not really a fan of that movie. I think because I was forced to watch that movie with not only my parents, but my own grandmother growing up so many times that I got sick of that movie. Then when I got older, like when I was a teenager, I went to thrift stores. I started collecting VHS tapes when I was 13 years old. I started noticing all these copies being dumped in Goodwills and Salvation Army thrift stores and all these other little thrift stores around my area. I live in West Virginia, so there's like a thrift store in every corner here. Seriously. I just seen so many copies of it growing up that I got sick of it. And then when I became an adult and started getting into the whole reseller thing, I started actually getting into reselling when I was a teenager, about 15 years old. So it's been a long time. I started seeing all of these copies showing up. I'd open a box, there'd be 1 or 2 or 10 in there. I would buy lots of VHS tapes, and they would show up. And I was like, oh my God, who collected all these? How many copies of Fro Mama from the Train do you need? It's about a guy who's basically trying to get rid of his mom, and he's throwing her from a train. He's throwing her from a train. Or the scene that I remember particularly from that, which I'm having Steven edit this. After I mention this, edit this into this. You can. Yeah, this is on the fly. The scene where he's trying to poison her by putting, forget what it was, something in her Dr. Pepper. Roll that scene right now.
Sorry, Mama. Why didn't you get me the salted nuts?
The salted ones are no good for you.
The unsalted ones make me choke. clumsy poop. What'd you do that for?
Okay, so there it is. There you have it. But yeah, that movie is so common that I just don't want to talk about it anymore. Okay, I will mention some honorable mentions. These are just a few on the fly. Sister Act, very common. Air Force One, very common. Men in Black, very common. Well, sort of. It's kind of getting a little bit more scarce now, but it is pretty common because people bought the crap out of that movie. I mean, who wouldn't buy it for, pre-slap Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones in his prom? Another one, Speed, Keanu Reeves. That's really common. But it didn't make our top 5 list. The 1978 Superman movie with Christopher Reeves, that one's pretty common. And then you got a lot of the Disney ones, like Cinderella, that's common. Bambi, common. Dumbo, all of those, And then Shrek is really common on VHS. I've seen Shrek quite a few times. And then you have some, more obscure stuff that I see a lot, like The First Wives Club. That's pretty common. Hope Floats. Good Will Hunting. The Russian House. The Brendan Fraser, the 1999 The Mummy. That's really common. And it's just all these movies. Oh, yeah, I forgot. The Godfather. See, I said The Godfather because I don't talk right. The Godfather. That one's really common. Actually, all 3 of those movies, part 1, 2, and 3, are very common on VHS tape. Now, if you're looking for some of the more obscure stuff, you'll want to turn to horror movie stuff. Generally, most horror movies are getting pretty scarce to find because the collector's markets are grabbing them up. One hidden gem on VHS tape, not really expensive in any way. It's pretty cheap. Very good hidden gem. It's a movie called Holy Man. That movie changed my life. If you haven't seen it, at least if you're not going to collect it on VHS tape, at least buy it for God's sake and watch the movie. It's just a lot of people, critics especially at the time, hated it. I absolutely loved that movie, and I don't know why I loved it. Now that I'm thinking about it, there is some more common titles. Jumanji, which happens to be one of my favorite movies. That's a really common movie to find. And before I lose my train of thought, The Hunt for Red October, another very common movie, along with Patriot Games and A Clear and Present Danger, something. Yeah. I'm not really too big into the Tom Clancy movies. I don't know why. I just never have. And Small Soldiers. Actually, it's common, but it's also kind of uncommon to find. There's 2 versions of it you can buy. The most common version is usually the clamshell, but the paper box version is becoming somewhat more rare to find. I own both versions of it, and I think the paper box version goes for maybe $5 more than the clamshell. But yeah, that is our top 5 list of most common VHS tapes. If you have any suggestions for any more VHS or even DVD or Laserdisc content you want to hear from Nostalgia Journeys, we'll cover anything, any kind of subject pre-2010, at least for now. We may move into the 2010s at some point. But if you have any subject in terms of VHS, DVD, Laserdisc, Betamax you want us to talk about, let us know and we will cover it on here. And if you watch the whole video, and I think I'm the only one that does this. I don't think Steven would do this. Tell us you watched the whole video in the comments down below, and we'll give you a shout out, or at least I'll give you a shout out in the next video. Now, I do have a shout out for someone today, and I want to give a very special shout out to Drummaster 10, who commented on the last video that I covered. Giving you a special shout out there. I don't remember what I said. I think I might have said I was going to do it at the beginning, but I decided to do it at the end. But yeah, if you have anything you want me to talk about, VHS, Laserdisc, Betamax, blah, 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 let me know, and I will talk about it next time I host. So until next time, I will see you.
I think this would be fantastic for a surprise birthday party. Surprise parties, you could say, surprise! It's your birthday! It's kind of funny, guys. Well, you look so youthful and surprised. You know what else this would be good for? Madam, I think you've just won the $1 million lottery!
Oh, my God.
That's not funny.
He's electrocuting Morgan Fairchild.
Oh,